The first discussion of the day is on open data platforms in India. We have representatives from 6 open data platform initiatives in India who would be presenting their portals, followed by a discussion. I would like to invite the moderator of the panel, one of the leading data person, Professor Avik Sarkar, visiting associate professor in data, technology, and public policy area at the Indian School of Business, to please take over and introduce the panelists for the first panel. Professor Sarkar, please.
Thank you, Arushi. So it was really nice to hear Mr. Mishra and Mr. Srivastava on their keynote addresses, because all of us who are data users for policy or any other purposes, we always rely very, very heavily on those portals, data.gov.in and MOSPI, almost visiting them on a daily basis to these websites to get the data. It's always good to know the journey that they have come through and what their future plans are. There is a lot of data that has been made available on this platform, both in data.gov.in and MOSPI, and also the individual ministries. We do not have all the government data or the state government data in a central place. They are all scattered across different ministries, and often the users cannot find this data in a single place. I think that is where the data platforms, which are, if I use the term, private players or non-government agencies, comes in and tries to fill in those gaps, the user need that is there. Because MOSPI or the ministry is trying to put out the data, and that is what they're busy in. How does people consume the data? From generating the data to the last mile, I think these are the firms who are trying to do that. And we, India Data Portal is also a partner in that same crime now. We have started our own portal, India Data Portal, and people also know about that. But today I want to showcase 5 portals which are showcasing open data of different types. And I will introduce the speakers for the session. I will start with Rwitwika. She's the CEO of Swaniti initiative. And then we will follow the discussion with Gaurav from Civic Data Lab. Then with Vrunda. She is from Satwa Consulting, and they have their own website, India Data Insights. Surya is doing fantastic work, Surya Prakash from Daksh Legal. And then we'll end the individual speeches with Ashutosh, Datar from India Data Hub. So I would request Rwitwika, if you could share your slides and also make your brief statement for 5 minutes talking about your platform.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Sarkar. Really appreciate it. And thank you for putting together this incredible panel. Dr. Srivastava just mentioned that during a pandemic, particularly how important and how tremendous the data collection process has been. Picking up, I know we're all on 5 minutes time, so I'll just kind of keep it to the point in terms of what I'm hoping to present today. In terms of what we were trying to do at Swaniti has been precisely that, is to kind of go ahead and to see, let me just actually change slide into slideshow mode. Has been exactly that, is to go ahead and to say, what kind of work can we do with data? What is it that we are able to do where it will improve decision making? And for Swaniti, one of the primary target kind of population target audience is policymakers. And so what we've done essentially is we started with a problem saying that, okay, if we want to have data and decision making process, and if we want to have policymakers quickly consume information so that they come out more informed about what development standards look like right now, what is the current problem, what is inhibiting them today, and then what do we need to do in order to overcome it. So what we started out the problem statement as saying that, look, as Dr. Srivastava mentioned, there's a lot of data which is collected. And it's not just MOSPI, as Dr. Sarkar mentioned, it is from different state governments, it's different departments. There's all of this information which is being collected. The problem that exists is not the lack of information, but that it needs to be synthesized and presented in a way that's quickly consumable. So we started with something called the Jano platform. It's live on the link that's shared on the PPT. And the goal there was, okay, can we go ahead and have data which is presented like this, as you can see on a screen, which is interactive, interactive, which is at a district level. I can look at multiple indicators. I can look at it from a map perspective. So for example, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that there were schemes which are mentioned. So can I take a look at a district level, how different schemes are performing? Or can I look at the state of the economy at a district level to see how the economic performance has been? And so what we were trying to solve was the problem of saying, what is it that, when it comes to policymakers, what kind of information will they quickly consume? How will they consume it? And how do we make this also go beyond policymakers if we're looking at, let's say, journalists and citizens, for anyone who's essentially engaged in the policymaking process? So Jano came about as a way of doing that. We launched it, I think it's been last year, 15th of August. So it's been over a year now. And it's been really interesting to be able to kind of understand how policymakers have consumed this, and the tremendous demand for wanting information which is simplified and which is present. And what we did in terms of the source of the information, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, you notice what we did was we essentially looked at different data sources from the government to be able to bring this information inside in. Now, a year in, especially given that pandemic struck and kind of we all went for a toss in March, what we wanted to start doing from September onwards was to say, this is great. We're glad we're able to take different information sources from different government sites, present it in a synthesized manner, have it be quickly consumable. And there was clearly a tremendous feedback and desire from different policymakers to want more granular data. But the next piece of it, which was there, was, while government data is great, can you also tell us what citizens want? And that kind of took us to version 2.0. So that, while the government is collecting the data that they are, how do we improve? How do we make sure that citizen feedback is also accounted for, that we have an idea of public service? And so then we came up with Jano on the app phone and on a mobile phone. So this actually started when the pandemic broke out. And we went into lockdown, and there was a need for everyone to know how essential services, where the essential service stores were open, what the phone number was, what is available. And where we really saw a lot of data was, okay, now the government, we know that the government is sitting on a lot of information, including what stores are open, where they're open, what times they're open, who delivers at home. Can we go ahead and take that information one step forward? Until now, while we're catering to policymakers in terms of information, can we now do civic engagement? And so during the pandemic, we came up with an app called the Jano app, which was really fascinating because, you learn so much about civic engagement and citizen feedback. And what we did on that app was essentially give a lot of information on what stores are open where, and, what is the phone number, and then a small review mechanism of how the stores were working. And so we tried and tested this whole component of citizen engagement, keeping in mind that there's a continuous desire from the government to want real-time data and information. And so what has been really interesting, as we're seeing from the Jano kind of app version, and what we're seeing from the next iteration of what is coming, is that, we've noticed that data is something which, while policymakers want and citizens want, policymakers want, there is as much of a pull from citizens on government data which exists as well. And so the Jano app, which is now, we have a beta version online. Again, here's the link in case you want to check out the beta version. What we're trying to do is we're trying to say there is one pot of government data which is coming from the government. Now let us look at another pot of data which is coming from citizens on government performance and services. And so we've kind of flipped the problem on its head. Just very quick numbers before I wrap up. The demand for something like this is so tremendous that when we first launched this app and we were trying to test this out, we had over 75,000 downloads. We've had active users every single day. We've had between 10 to 15,000 active users. And this is literally just word of mouth. We haven't pushed this anywhere forward. We're now trying and testing this forward, where we're connecting the citizen data to government and seeing how the government is basically able to process this information which is coming in. So for us, the journey has been from seeing data which we give to policymakers and how they're consuming it, to citizens and how citizens are now giving data back, and how policymakers are consuming it to improve public service. I know we're short on time, so that's pretty much it from my side.
Yes. So thanks, Rwitwika, for that quick note. I think one particular thing which I like about Jano, because I have been a user of this site for a very long time myself, is the fact that they give data at constituency level, and often people want to know that aspect, that what is there. One thing is that the 5 minute was kept in mind. I know it's a short time. because we expected each of you to have a booth, and you tell that we exist here, and then also tell that about your booth. But only two of you have got the time for a booth, because I know it was end minute. So three of you didn't get time for the booth. So next one, if I can invite Gaurav. Gaurav, you can display your slides and talk about the finance and the budget data.
Thanks a lot, Avik, for having me here, and thanks everyone for coming to discuss open data platforms. As Mr. Shrivastava was saying, this is an exciting time for us because there are new forms of technology out there. There are new forms of data sources out there, and there's a lot we can do with that. The major challenge which exists at this moment is how do I understand where the taxpayers' money is going? How much governments are spending on a national level, state level, or a local level. And for doing so, one has to go through more than 500 websites to collect information, to see where the data is being published, in what format it is being published, crunch all that information, and then probably see to some extent, a picture of where the money is flowing in the country. All this effort is like a tremendous amount of work, and you would need a team of economists, data scientists, technologists, designers, so many other players to come together to do this. So that's where we came in. We thought like we would make life of all the researchers and people who are interested in reporting about how the government is spending slightly easy by presenting all this information in an easy to use format. We started Open Wealth India platform early in 2017, trying to focus on government budgets, and gradually we have added treasury spending, near real-time spending from various treasuries happening on a regular basis. We update the data almost on a daily basis for them. And now gradually we are figuring out how we can add public procurements to it as well. You can see the QR codes in the slides. You can use these platforms. These are all open access platforms. How do we go about it? If Avik can go in the next slide, we briefly talk about our process. So we do near real-time data mining. We go through these 500 websites in an automated way, get the information there. We download the PDFs. We crunch most of those PDFs into machine-readable data so that it's easily accessible. We do robust analysis and present illustrations, graphs, data visualizations like this for easy access for you. We also are trying to track things which are relevant at this moment, like spending of states on COVID-19 relief in one way or the other, how they are spending at the moment. Whatever information is out there, we're trying to capture here on the platform. We also make all our platforms open source. So if you want to use this platform or repurpose this platform for any other data source, you can. Data algorithms are also open source. Everything what we do is open source, and the base layers as well, you can reuse for any purpose you want. We also take care of privacy and ethics. So we really don't ask any personal information from you when you access data on the platform. There is no sign up, there is no login. You just can freely download the data for any purpose you want. There is no tracing per se. And we work a lot with governments to build their capacity and advocate to open up data as well. And that I would summarize a bit on our impact slide, which is the next one. Avik, if you can go to that. So our impact so far of all these efforts is we have 11,000 data sets on the platform, which you can access in an easy to use format. We have 2.64 lakh users globally who are consuming this information, and we have a huge user base in India. We have seen close to 4 lakh data views and downloads from this platform so far. And 4 states have come together to open up their data on the platform through our advocacy efforts and partnerships. These are Assam, Himachal, Karnataka, and now we are in conversation with Tripura government as well. So they are using the platform to not just consume the data, they are using this to publish their machine-readable data as well. So it's much more easy to access for people. And lastly, there are other media houses, various books, various research papers who have started to quote data from this platform and drive new insights, drive new discussions, creating new knowledge from this existing knowledge pool. So that's where we are. We continue to build capacity of governments to open up more. We continue to work with different stakeholders to see how this data can be used. And now we are working to move beyond public finance. We are going and charting our journey in other sectors like law and justice and urban development. So maybe in the next year Open Data Conclave, we can show you 2 or 3 other open data platforms which are related to law and justice, urban development, and other sectors as well. So thanks a lot. We have a booth set up as well. You can come discuss more with us there, as Avik was mentioning, and we are happy to share more information. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so thanks, Gaurav. I think he's the money man. His company keeps talk of the finances of the whole India and all what states where they are spending. So he's a man that you should keep in mind if you're thinking about anything. Next, can I invite Vrunda from Satwa Consulting and to talk about their platform India Data Insight.
Good morning to everybody. I think it was fantastic to hear from the keynote speakers the government's point of view on how they are trying to make data more easily accessible for everybody, including people like us who are trying to kind of do the next level of processing as we were discussing earlier, so that the data becomes more usable for everybody. So as part of our effort, so let me introduce the firm first. So Satwa Consulting is one of the leading social sector advisory firms in India. We work with CSR funders. We also work with foundations and other donors in India, the philanthropists and domestic foundations, international foundations. We also work with multilaterals. And we work with many non-profit organizations as well. So really, as a consulting firm, we work with all the stakeholders in this sector. And therefore, one of the reasons why we started this portal was actually very, I would say, keeping a specific user in mind. So I know we earlier heard about the fantastic efforts of Jano India and Civic Data Lab, and kudos to them. I think they have done wonderfully well in terms of one in terms of citizen data, one in terms of government's budget data. I think for us, what was important was the social sector organizations. So I would say that our portal is more meant for the organizations that are looking to understand 2 different types of things. So one is, of course, the nonprofits who are trying to understand the development situation on the ground so that they are able to make very quick presentations or quick analysis of where the problem is most acute and therefore where do they really need to go, and that kind of helps them in making a more effective pitch to their donors. So that for us was kind of an important use case. The second important use case for us was all kinds of funders in India. So whether it is corporate CSR teams or foundations, multilaterals, etc., when they need to decide where they want to deploy their development capital, how do they make a decision, right? And again, I mean, we have already heard through the course of this morning that although the data is available, how difficult it is to actually make it, accessible and use it for decision making. Again, the corporate CSR teams are typically very small. In case of NGOs, sometimes they don't have the required data skills in their organization. Some of them are really grassroots level organizations who don't have that kind of bandwidth. So for the funders, we wanted to make this easily available as a filtering tool at a high level. So for example, if they could see the entire landscape of, say, the state of education infrastructure throughout India, or if they could understand the malnutrition status throughout India, it makes them use it as a quick filter to say, okay, these are the states that we want to focus on, or these are the districts where we want to go. So really speaking, that is how we have kind of built this portal, and it has been live for about 2 years now. It's called indiadatainsights.com, and we typically provide 2 points of view. One is the development situation in that particular geography, whether you want to see it at a state level or a district level, coupled with how much of funding is going there. So right now, I would say we've been able to kind of map CSR funding very accurately, because that was one of our primary focus areas as well. So you can really see for all 30,000 companies that do CSR in India, what each one of them has done over the last 5 years, year by year, project by project, what have they spent on, in which district, and all kinds of granularity. So I would say that is how we have kind of tried to present our use case to the users. And since we kind of purpose built it for the type of users that we anyway work with, I think most of our users are from those categories, which is either nonprofit organizations or funders of variety of types who are working in the development sector. And I must say that it has definitely kind of influenced the way they have been able to make decisions in terms of where they want to fund, where the donors want to fund. And we're happy that our impact has been in terms of influencing the precious development capital in our country to go to the right places and in the right way at the right time. So with that, I'm going to end here because the website is live, and just in the interest of time, probably I don't need to go through the slides because we've already spoken about all the issues coming to the use of data and everything else, but would love to now hear from the other panelists. Thank you so much, Avik.
And now I would request Surya.
Thanks so much, Avik.
Yeah.
This is a fantastic session. I've already learned so much from the other panelists. I will definitely take not more than 6 minutes or so. So Daksh is a Bangalore-based nonprofit working on judicial reforms, largely. And the reason why judicial data is important is I don't think I need to explain to this audience. It is so opaque in its functioning on what happens in a case or why it has happened so far. But I would just request, urge attendees here to say, when we think about judicial data, what should be measured is a larger question. How it should be measured: openness, transparency, impartiality, bias, right? Those are questions that immediately come to our mind when we think of the justice system. But then we think about how it should be measured. Then we get a little more, can it really be measured using data? Then if you say, yes, it should be measured, what is the data actually available for measuring it? And that is when you start getting mired in the possibilities of and the realities of the structure that we are currently in. There is very little data that is really available in the public domain that can answer a lot of questions that citizens have. That does not mean to say that there is no data or whatever is available is not of much use. There are summary data, the NJDG, the National Judicial Data Grid, which the courts themselves publish of the district courts and some of the high courts. The Supreme Court and the annual reports of some of the high courts have, again, summary statistics. The reason we're mentioning summary statistics is even these were not very forthcoming till some years back. It's now becoming a regular feature, but that is only in the last 2 years or so. The disaggregated data is available at the ecourts.gov.in website. Again, and Gaurav, and we've had many discussions on this, the data that is available is not available in bulk. So you have to go and access it one by one by one. Daksh did this for the first time. The Daksh database collected all of this and made it available to some extent. And I would want to be upfront about it, to some extent. There are many reasons for these. And one of the things was also about how judiciary would perceive its data being made available in bulk, because they were themselves preventing bulk access. Whether somebody else putting it all out would, how that would reflect was one of the concerns. But the Daksh database has been put out. It's been there for the last 5 years. We have done work with the annual economic surveys of the Union Finance Department. It's been used by many researchers and not just in Daksh, but outside also. So this is what the Daksh data contains, right? Again, the case data and the hearing data. I'm just jumping to the graph here. Maybe a bit too much of a detail for now, but just to show that there is data available. We have district data for 170 districts, about 6,000 courts. It seems like a lot of data is available. But I would like to again emphasize that The usability of this is dependent on its quality. And we have repeatedly found that the quality of the data that the courts put out is not great. We have there are the usual consistency issues, and some of the fields which are very important are even left blank. So we are engaging with that topic separately. um, Daksh has made a significant recent announcement where we put out for the public data sets that have cleaned what is available in the court's database and is made available in CSV formats for people to use in their respective research work. Just a sneak peek into what is possible, because time is a big factor in the judiciary's functioning, and the perception of delay in the functioning of the judiciary is a overriding concern for everybody. This is something that is possible to be measured. Again, simplistic, not too statistically complicated. And I want to emphasize that these are very simplistic measures, because sometimes it can be a bit misleading to say that it is taking cases are being disposed of in 3 months or 9 months or 18 months, while pendency is 3 years, right? So how do you, when you're looking at the functioning of a court, how do you balance these two statistics? These are some things that needs more discussion, and researchers need to evolve a consensus on right metrics for measuring the performance of the judiciary. All of those are possible through our database. It's some visualization is available. We are upgrading it, and very shortly a more interactive way of engaging with our data is going to be launched for the public use. Please keep watching our website. Another snapshot from our database. The data is the chart at the bottom. I know it's a bit it's not too clear here, but the quality of the data or the availability of the data improves over the last 8 years or so. Before that, it was really very patchy. We have built our database principally for the use of the judiciary and the judges. Because we think that they are the ones who need to be made sensitive to the use of data in their functioning. Um, it is a challenge because they are numerically, they need to be, trained on how to use this data. So which is why we've kept it very simple, and we have engaged with them other than through the database. But the data of the use of the data is what I'm talking about. The lawyers who want to understand how their cases have progressed. So researchers in academia, the database has been of much use there. The hard raw data has been used by many people. We will be making this more citizen friendly and simplifying things so that others can also use. Thank you so much, Avik. I stop my presentation here and see if there's any questions on the judicial data and how it can be contributing to the larger data policies of the country.
Yes, thanks, Surya. I think that's an extremely important data, and given the format that the data is residing, we find access and doing any analytics on top of it very, very challenging. And it's great work that Daksh is actually getting all that data and putting a lot of. I also read your articles and stuff that you put out in the open, like the based on the analysis of the data. We always have a judgment about the judicial system. Both individuals and Bollywood has a point of view on the judicial system, but that's all like just based on some perception.
Anecdotal.
What the real is anecdotal stuff. Yes, it's really good to see you putting data and evidence behind it. So thanks for your address. I would like to invite Ashutosh Datar from India Data Hub for his address.
Thanks, Avik, for this opportunity, and it is absolutely brilliant to hear the other panelists who are doing a wonderful job in making data more accessible. I guess if you are passionate about data, then these are absolutely brilliant times to be living in. There is so much of stuff that you can do, so many stories you can tell, and so many ways you can interact with data. To about India Data Hub, so we started India Data Hub about a year back. Yeah, with the objective of making data more accessible. So to give you my background, I used to work as an economist for over a decade, and one of the things that I struggled with was to get hands on data, both high frequency and sort of longer term data. Where the data is available, it sits behind expensive database companies who charge you a bomb for making that data available. So it's only the corporates who can afford to have access to the data. So in a sense, started to democratize data. And while we are agnostic towards what data we cover, we currently focus on economic and business or industry sort of sector level data. Sort of social, judicial, and sort of all of the data is not something that we are looking at right now. We are mostly focused on data that will be useful for businesses, data that will be useful for analysts from a point of view of understanding what's happening in the economy and sort of the business sector. And the other thing that we wanted to do was not just be a passive provider of data. So in a sense, what we've built is an interactive platform. We have different tools like apps and dashboards, analytical functions, visualization engines that you can sort of interact with data, compare data, run basic analysis, and so on. Where we are currently, so currently we sort of have sort of almost tens of thousands of time series on our platform, India Data Hub, covering India as well as all the states. This ranges from your national accounts data to demographic data to sectoral data like power or telecom, banking, payments, foreign trade, all these sort of sectoral data that we have. The data is sourced from different ministries, government bodies, industry associations, etc. There is still a long way to go for us in terms of making this data more comprehensive. We're still under development, but I think there is a fairly broad coverage of data that we have. To just give you a quick flavor of how the site looks like, this in a sense is what our sort of platform is. There are three ways people interact with this platform. One is sort of dashboards, which gives you an at a glance information of the data of the topic. So India at a glance gives you high level data for India, ranging from India's exports, government debt, population, GDP, per capita GDP, etc., etc. We have demographics, which gives you high level data on demographics.
Ashutosh, sorry to interrupt you. We are seeing the status slide.
Oh, okay.
You have to share your desktop instead of the application if you want.
Oh, okay. Is this visible now?
Yes, now we can see, yes.
Okay, so this in a sense is how the site sort of looks like. There are three ways people interact with this site. One is a search function where you can search for data you sort of search for data. You get all the indicators that are tagged against, let's say, petroleum or energy sector. You get a visualization. You can compare this data with other data by adding the different data. You can convert this data into different formats. You can convert this data into different frequencies. You can analyze the data by using data analytics. So this is sort of the analytical visualization engine on the platform. And for sort of just have a simpler look at data, we have something called as dashboards, which people can just get an at a glance sort of view of either India, the economy, demographics, global trade, commodity prices, and so on. We also have apps where we have comprehensive sort of multi-layered data, whether it is payments, whether it is government finances, foreign trade, inflation, and we'll sort of keep adding stuff as we go along. So this is in a sense how the platform is structured. This is the primary platform that we have. The other interesting thing that we've done recently is we've published this book called the Data Book, which gives you a bird's eye view of India through data. This has data over 2,200 indicators, 180 visualizations in it, and sort of 12 different sections let me give you a share of how this book looks like. So this book was licensed by a foreign broking house to distribution to its clients. So this is in a sense the data book. So data book is again a part of what we will do. This is the data book is a series under which we'll publish several books that make data more accessible. The State of India is sort of the first book that we have. It sort of covers data under sort of these many different topics. The second book under this series, we're planning to launch it by November, December of this year. So we have one part of what we do is make data available through an analytical interactive platform, and the other part of what we're doing is sort of publish books or publications which make data more accessible, so and help people understand data. Yeah. So with this, I'll hand it back to you, Avik.
Okay, thanks, Ashutosh. That's really interesting to hear. I would also request now that we can have a quick round of questions, so we can have all of us available on the screen. So if you can switch on your videos, everyone, it will be really good. So I will like to ask you a few questions, because you see there is a lot of things that we are doing in common, but there's also a lot of variety. Someone is working on things like legal data, financial data. Then I'd also like to talk about India Data Portal, which is our portal. We talk about India Data Portal, but we also have a sectoral focus. Our sectoral focus is more on agriculture. We really do a deep dive into agriculture, financial inclusion, and rural development. So I think a lot of the technologies and aspects might be similar. Like what we are doing for agriculture might not be very different if you go for healthcare. But again, we need a lot of technical details, also understanding the domain, as Surya was talking about, or as Gaurav was talking about. You need to understand the domain also very well, along with the technology part. So that often is very difficult in a single organization. So there is a lot of commonalities among us, and there are things, and we have been also in this journey for the last 2 years. I think the first question that I will ask you, and you can and choose to answer anyone. What is one of the biggest challenges that you face when you try to put in your data portal? I think anyone, I think Rwitwika, Gaurav, anyone can answer, but keep it short, because we have like very limited time.
Sure, I can take a shot, Avik. So I think the major challenge is just the accessibility. Even if you train algorithms, mine data, I think the data format keeps changing. And the government themselves don't see data as like database. They don't maintain the time series data themselves. So the structure of data keeps changing. And just to give you an example, in this year's budget data, the machine readable files, the Excels which were produced by the government, they got overnightly changed. And there was no change log or notification given to the users that there is a data change which has happened. So we need more change log, we need more structure, and we need more collaboration and co-creation, so that we don't repeat the exercise. We collaborate and we share our information. So those are the kind of challenges I face.
Yes,
I completely
that's a very valid. Yes, that's a very valid point. I just want to talk about that. The census, the Registrar General of India, they actually hold a data users conference before publishing the census every 10 years. They have something like that. But the other ministries that publish data, I don't know if they have this sort of a forum where data users can come and tell what they actually want from the data. I think deciding on the format along with the government is very important, because that saves a lot of time. And if there are things that are available in APIs, things would be much, much easier for platforms like you, like us. Vrunda, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Gaurav said in terms of format. That's a big challenge. I think all of us grapple with it every day. Another point I just wanted to highlight was on the metadata. So in many cases, the government data sets don't really talk about what each field is. So we don't know how it has been captured and what is the basis, what is the definition. In the absence of that information, it becomes very difficult for the users to make decisions based on that data. So I think the metadata definitions are also something which is many times missing from the government data sets.
So just to sort of add to what Vrunda said, I think metadata is probably the key issue that we've also faced. I mean, basic things like when government reports data on, let's say, something as basic as petroleum exports or petrol imports, it will have different definitions in different press releases. It will have different definition across time periods. So what you see as petroleum exports for 2015 is not the same as petroleum exports for 2020. or what you see in one ministry or one press release is not the same. And there is no documentation as to what each press release, what it means. So a detailed metadata or a consistent definition would help. Also, from our perspective, what will help us is to just have a very proper release schedule of data. And as others have said, machine readable data would definitely. I mean, something as basic. I mean, RBI used to report data in billions and millions until last year, and suddenly overnight it changes to crores and lakhs, and it just changes everything without any notice. So it's something as basic as that. If you could just give us an advance notice that, hey, this is what will happen with effect from this date, it makes our lives a lot simpler. Just to be aware that people are relying on sort of what you are doing and their processes and systems. You go for a toss when you do something as big a change as this. It's just sort of this kind of sensitivity will help if policymakers and regulators have that.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting point that you make. So, do we have any body or consortium of say private data users like organizations like us in India that exist today? Maybe Gaurav, Surya, or anyone might.
I was about to say that, Avik, and I'm glad this has come out, that we should evolve a mechanism where these various data bases and portals can start talking to each other. And that can show the government the way in which they should possibly evolve standards or recommend standardization. I think it should be, we should take the lead, and I'm sure ISB is well placed to do that, to say these are the common fields or these are the ways in which data should be put out, and that could help the government itself in putting out standards.
Yes, I think that's a very good suggestion. I think with that suggestion, I think this is something that is very good, and we should, I think, take this forward. There are 5 of us we could invite you today, but there are many more players like you in India that we know are either doing it as a free model, open data, or there's a freemium model. Like some part of it is free and some part you have to pay for, because you also have to think about the sustainability aspect about your company. Like as Arushi was telling, ours is funded by BMDF, this India Data Portal, but some of you might be sustaining ours on your own. So so these are some of the things that we can see, and we can see how we can take this forward, possibly form a body or a consortium that can share our ideas and thoughts, and at least ask the government and request them to share for data in certain format.
Correct.
Helps the community as a whole. I think data has to be taken up as a thing that people are really using it.
Yeah.
That message has to be sent out very clearly to the government. Then I think they will take this action. There is a session at the end of the day, starting at 4 p.m., which talks about the sustainability of such portals and what are the frameworks that we can do, which has been moderated by S. Anand, CEO of Grameener. So we will discuss some of the issues there. But I think with that, I will like to end for now, and I will request all of the participants to visit the booths. There are booths only about, so 6 of us are here, only 3 of us has booth, India Data Portal, Civic Data Lab, and Swaniti. The others cannot come up with booths in the interest of time. It was in a very short notice, but hopefully they will remember the name of your website and go and visit that, because that is the whole objective of bringing you there, so the people come to know about it and it's popularized. So with that, I will like to thank all of you for your valuable time and making these statements and coming on this panel organized by ISB. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Avik. Thank you. Thanks to all the panelists.